Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And next slide. I am Dr. Lisa Zaynab Killinger, embraced Islam in 1979. Some of you are familiar faces from last year. And I am from Safa. They said that women are from Safa and men are from Marwa. Actually, how many of you have read the book Women Are from Venus and Men Are from Mars? A few of you, and mostly the American brothers and sisters I see. But to just give a brief explanation is that it's almost as if men and women come from two different planets, men being from Mars, the Martians, or the Marwans, if we're here in this session, and the women from Venus, or Safa, as we will refer to them in this session. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with this topic. Brother Akeo and I have promised to keep it tight and keep it short so that we won't hold you over for lunch. Thank you for your patience. And next slide, please. Again, I've been practicing Islam for 23 years. I've surely seen my share of the un-Islamic life, and also have had the opportunity and the privilege to understand and live the Islamic life. And I really do appreciate the guidance that Islam brings to us regarding marital issues. Also, too, those of you who have come from my town, Davenport, where I traveled from, know that I've been divorced. And they say, why is this woman who's been divorced speaking of marriage? Well, I've been married, I've been divorced, I've been married again. And I would just like to say that I think to speak effectively about war, you have to have been on the front lines, right? You have to have been there. And to speak effectively about marriage, you have to have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we're going to proceed from there. Next slide, please. This verse in the Qur'an I always appreciate. We've seen it over and over in many different contexts. In this one, we're going to actually tie into marital relations. O humankind, we've created you from a single pair of a male and a female, and made into you nations and tribes that you may know each other. This is Surah Hujurat. And the concept of knowing each other from a marital standpoint, because this verse does not only relate to the different tribes and the different colors and the diversity of the Muslim Ummah, but it also speaks to the diversity in gender. We've created you from a pair, a male and a female. We have, so that you can know each other. And this knowledge of each other comes from learning from each other, from enriching each other's life. Next slide, please. From not only enriching each other, but also complementing each other. The weaknesses that a woman has, maybe a male can fill in. And certainly the weaknesses that a male has, a woman can fill in. And they complement each other. The concept of a whole human being formed by the union in marriage. We're created in pairs to support each other, to love each other, certainly not insignificant, and to comfort one another. This concept of comfort or sukoon, we've heard in the Qur'an, we've heard in hadith about husband and wife needing to comfort each other. And it's certainly what marriage is for. Next slide, please. You'll remember this hadith, that marriage is half of your deen. This is a tough one to explain to children. It's a tough one to explain to new Muslims. You mean I have to pray my whole life 5 times a day? I have to fast 30 days a year? I have to give zakat? I have to go to Hajj? I have to do all these things? I have to have excellent iman? And then still, I've only completed half of my deen? Or I only get the equivalent credit of half of my deen? If I do that marriage well, that's equivalent in credit to all of these other things combined. And I think that's significant, and it speaks to the importance of this topic. Incredibly important. Next slide, please. Husbands, the men that we're speaking of here, truly are from Marwa. They don't speak the same language as women. We come from a different planet. There they are, the Marwans. They're all sitting right there. The Safans, they're spread around the room. Men get together in packs. They're driven by drives, sexual drives, hunger, sports, anything like this, aggressive things. They don't really deal in language of hints, tact, subtleties. They are the language of directness. They say what they mean. They ask for what they want. It's the difference. And I'm being very, very sexist here, but I'm saying that this is the tendency, and it's a tendency that has been spoken to in the Hadith. It's been spoken to and addressed in the Qur'an. The differences, the natural differences between male and female. But importantly, they want to be loved. They want to be adored. They want to be comforted, cared for. All of those things that every human being wants. But sometimes Not, pride won't allow them to actually say that, right? You Safans know what I'm talking about. And then wives, the women are from Safa, definitely from Safa. It seems like we are from another planet. The way we speak in a language of subtlety. We hint, we're delicately asking for things, we're suggesting, and then we're driven by emotion. So when a husband isn't clear on what his needs are, or if we feel that he's not loving us right, we tell him emotionally, usually with tears involved and exasperation, but it's a different language, and it's okay to have a different language as long as we can come together on some common ground. Here's some common ground. Next slide, if we will. The desire to be loved. The desire to have companionship is certainly common ground. The desire to be respected, very significant for both Marwans and Safans, the men and the women. To be comforted and adored. This is our common ground from which marriage is built. And again, remember, I've seen both sides. So I know that it can be that way, wonderfully, and it can also fail miserably to be that way. And there are good reasons for those. Islam guides us. All too often, we as wives and husbands as well forget to comfort each other. Forget to continue to make the effort to support each other verbally. To forget how important it is and how significant and what it buys you, what capital it buys you in a marriage to give compliments to each other, to encourage each other. How many of you today who are married have given your wife or husband or spouse a compliment? Said, "You look nice today, honey. Your hijab looks good. This dress is wonderful. Your nur is showing on your face." Only four brave souls who bravely went there out of Marwan, traveled over to Safa, and spoke that language momentarily anyway. But good job. And we have to, as husbands and wives, make this effort to think what the comforting thing is that we can say, what the compliment is that we can say. I have to give a brief example because a friend of mine, very close friend of mine, non-Muslim, came to me in tears the other day. She didn't come to me in tears. She had been crying and it was obvious by her face. She looked destroyed. And I asked, "What's wrong?" And she said, "What is it with these men?" She said, "Don't they understand? When the beginning of the relationship, they compliment you, they tell you you're beautiful, they tell you how much they love you. Don't they realize that they wrap you around their little finger when they say these little words? Can't they even bother to do it 3 months into a relationship?" She was horrified. She was exasperated, and she was only 3 months in. God forbid she would go 30 years. I mean, I'd hate to see. But think about it. In our marriages, we have to continually make this effort. Islam is a deen that not only says you have to have iman, but you have to translate that iman into action. And the action in marriage is acts of kindness, acts of love, to express your adoration and your love for each other. Because if you don't, where do people look? Astaghfirullah. People look for adoration somewhere else. And we don't want to be following in the footsteps of the Jahiliyyah and the footsteps of the Kafirun. We want to be following the example that Islam gives us, that we adore our spouses. The results are never good when you fail to do these things. So Islam guides us to a better way. Next slide, please. Controversial verse. Your wives are such as a tilth to you, so approach them when or how you will. But, and I have it bolded here for good reason, do some good act for your souls beforehand, and fear Allah, knowing that you are to meet Him in the hereafter. And give these good tidings to those who believe. Surah Baqarah 222. Next slide, please. Yes, marriage in Islam does give the rights for men, husbands, you Marwans, to have marital relations and physical relations with your wife whenever you want. And women, for you to have relations whenever you want. That's one of the perks of marriage. There are not that many, it's a lot of work, but this is one of the perks. And those people who are not in marriage truly do wish for this. And oftentimes in this society, they go out and have relations with as many people as they want because they don't have the guidance. And it's always an empty thing. We enjoy this relation inside the sanctity of marriage. And what a great faith this is, that the Prophet said that if you are having relations with your wife physically, you're getting blessings for this. And someone was confused and said, why would you get blessings for having sex, basically? And he said that it was Because if you have relations outside of marriage, think of how serious the crime it is. It's a capital punishment in Islam. So wouldn't it be that if you have it in the way that Islam encourages us within the sanctity of marriage, that there wouldn't be blessings for this? It's an adoration, it's an expression of love. So certainly we want to not have the alternative, the society, what this society encourages. We want to have the Islamic marital relations. Next slide. So the caution regarding this verse, we'll separate it out. It says you can have your wife when and where you want and how and etc. But a husband shall be judged by the tears of his wife. Very, very common hadith. And that a man who treats his wife with cruelty during the day and then seeks to have marital relations with her at night is truly not one of the believers. And this is also a hadith that warns men actually, warns them with the strongest language, saying that you're not even a believer if you think that you can beat on your wife during the day and then go to her and think that she's going to be all receptive and friendly at night. This is not right. This is not Islamic. And so this is encouraging all of you to remember that the acts of kindness that you show during the day are how the love gets expressed and then translated into physical relations. And I caution too, because I've seen this over and over and over, not so much in this country, because there's checks and balances in a country where the societies have all met, the cultures have all met, and we're trying to learn Islam from the books. There's a checks and balance on this. But in many countries, the men choose parts of the Qur'an and say, nope, it's my right, but they don't follow the other parts of the hadith and Qur'an. And this is important. This is important. Islam is the religion of love. Islam is the religion of peace. Islam is the religion of tolerance. Islam is the religion of patience. All of these things are inconsistent with a man who would selectively choose the parts of the Qur'an that would serve him, but not be respective of the rights of his wife. So women, you're not off the hook either, you. It can't be used as a weapon to withhold marital relations in Islam. And this is important, because where would a man go to have marital relations if the woman or the wife, the Safan in the picture, refused to have marital relations? Again, outside of the relationship. This is what the Islam is trying to prevent. So here, the women have asked, but it's a really effective weapon. You don't share your bed with your husband, and that's some pretty heavy-duty weaponry that you have, but it's haram. It's haram. We have to work things out with our husbands, and also we have to remind our husbands of the other side and what's required of them in the marriage. And I've seen this hadith spoken several ways in actually Sahih Muslim, and it said, a pious husband shall spend the time it takes for 40 camels to pass his tent, pleasing his wife before he takes his own pleasure, before he satisfies himself. I love this faith. This is a faith that 1,400 years ago, when Christianity was not talking about sex, was not talking about relations, was saying that women are dirty and we're all created in a sinful act and blah, 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 and corrupting our minds to the normal marital relations, Islam said, no, your relations are normal. There's blessings attached. It's a wondrous thing. Do it how you will and within marriage when you will. But remember to please your wife. And this was directly referring to marital relations. This wasn't, any other act. This was definitely related to marital relations. Pretty profound, brothers, pretty profound stuff. But in the Quran, men are considered protectors and maintainers of women because Allah has given one more strength over the other. But they also must support the women from their own means. So this is Surah Nisa, where many of the verses regarding women come. This is, next slide please, the beautiful balance of Quran. With rights come responsibilities. When have we ever gotten a right in Islam that we didn't have a responsibility attached to it? We have the rights to be Muslim, and we have some responsibilities that come along with that. So the beautiful balance of Quran is that we have different strengths. Next slide, please. We have different then responsibilities. The husband has some rights and some extra strength, so then he has to go out, make a living, and support his wife and his family. The woman does not have that responsibility. How nice is that for women? Women have different bodies. Men have different bodies. Not only do they speak different languages, but they have different equipment. So of course they have a different dress code. The dress code of women is a little bit more extensive. We have more good stuff to cover. That's all right. I'm not thinking that it's prejudicial or in any way. I would rather not be going around to just, like I just as soon men cover what they've got. I'd just as soon cover what I've got as well. I know not all women in America share this decision, but that's my decision. We have an equal chance to attain paradise. This is where Safa and Marwa meet. We're on the same orbit. We both have the equal chance to attain paradise. We have equal rights to seek and gain knowledge. No leader of a country, no individual should ever tell a woman you don't have the right to go to school. This is haram. In Islam, this is not only our right, but our responsibility. The first word of the Qur'an revealed being Iqra, read, and it was to all of humankind. So this is both of our rights and responsibility. Equal rights to earn a living. I love this equal right between male and females, that we can all go out and make a living. But at the end of it all, remember the responsibility is that men have a little bit more strength, have a little bit more benefit in some situations, but who gets to keep their paycheck? Brothers, you know what I'm talking about. Who takes your paycheck? You know who does. It's your wives. That's where it's supposed to go. And that's all right, sisters? That's all right. If you get a paycheck, it goes right in your pocket, and that's for you and your security, and that's how Islam protects the rights of women, and that's okay. We have a great religion. People ask me, how could you have ever embraced Islam? Islam is so oppressive to women. I'm like, boy, if you only knew. The poor brothers, what rights do they have? So what should husbands use their God-given strengths for? I keep checking back because I'm not in control of the slide, so I want to make sure I'm saying the same thing that's up there on the screen. You have to use your strength to make a living. It's a responsibility that is placed on you, Islam, and fixing stuff. You gotta love a man who can fix stuff. Having been married to a man who could not screw in a light bulb to save his own neck, and to have a husband who can fix things now, it's such a blessing. Subhanallah, subhanallah. Carrying and moving heavy things. How many of you sisters have ever had to move your dorm room or move your apartment and not being married, you didn't have a brother or a husband or whatever, and you're stuck? We love it when there's a brother at home, a husband at home, who can move the heavy things, taking out the garbage. It was one of my favorite hadith that I found in this topic, and I found it early on in my Muslim days, trust me. The Prophet was seen, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Prophet Muhammad was seen taking out the garbage in his household. And a companion came to him all alarmed and questioned him and said, Ya Rasulullah, you shouldn't be doing this terrible, dirty job? He looked at him and said, so who should I have it? Who should I have do this job in my household? The mothers of all the believers? So he called him right there and then and said, you know what? The sisters aren't to be servants in the household. We are to do help in the household. And if this example were followed today in Muslim nations around the land, unity would fall around the world and it would all be a happier place, right? So remember, men, take the garbage out. Before your wives ask, preferably. As a Safan, a woman, I definitely appreciate having someone strong and helpful in the home. It sure beats the alternative. It definitely does. I was 5-6 years on my own in between marriages, and I did not like it at all. So next slide, please. Righteous women are devoutly obedient and guard in their husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. This is another verse that is oftentimes taken out of context by non-Muslims to say, see, Islam is a very male chauvinistic religion. Surah Nisa. Next slide. Obedient, doesn't that seem rather chauvinistic? But who rules what domains in Islam? Negotiation is an important part of Islam. And since, remember, we go back to that slide where the husband is judged by the tears of his wife. What husband in his right mind would want to do things and not negotiate and be oppressive and make a situation in the house where a wife feels like she can't express her opinion for fear of being chastised? This is not an Islamic marriage. So negotiation is a necessity in marriage. Also, the concept of civil disobedience. And what I mean by this is don't disobey your spouses, But both husbands and wives, if you feel strongly about something, isn't it time to express what your thoughts are on it? To express respectfully your thoughts on it? Speak to what would make both of you the most happy and successful in this life and the next, and then arrange something that would work best for both of you. And you know, people tend to, in marriage, sweat the little stuff. They tend to get to little things like, you know, how somebody drives or how somebody eats or how somebody does this, and start bickering about these things or not liking little things about the way you dress or something. But, you know, don't sweat the small stuff. I really feel like the only thing worth arguing is something that is going to harm somebody physically or is going to cause real severe emotional distress. These two things, or is going to destroy somebody else's property. Same with children. There's no sense in fighting with them if they just choose to wear a blue and an orange sock. Nobody's going to be killed. You know, nobody's going to be killed. They'll probably come back and say, you know, I think the blue socks go really well together. We come around, but you have to be able to express yourself. And for Safans, women, of course, obedience is an admirable trait. It's encouraged to, if a husband says, do this, yes, and then work later to try to convince him why you feel maybe a different way is better, but respectfully. But remember, kindness, patience, tolerance, and generosity are the core of Islamic marriage for both Safans and Marwans. So we have to think of those things first. And then the outlet. If a wife fears cruelty or desertion on her husband's part, there's no blame on them if they arrange an amicable settlement. And men, I'm putting the brackets in because that's not the words used, it's later in the verse, do good and practice self-restraint. Allah is well acquainted with what you do. Again, Surah Nisa. And I brought this up because this is something, the chance for an out. If there isn't a chance for an out in a marriage, then maybe a woman would be subject to great cruelty or abuse, maybe even murder. And it happens in this country. I mean, tens and tens of thousands of women a year are killed because of domestic violence. And in Muslim countries too, don't get me wrong. But here, you know, without the guidance, it happens very commonly. So there has to be an out, a way to get out of a situation, and it should be amicable. And husbands are reminded to do good and practice self-restraint. Next slide, please. The key word, we got a keyword alert here. I know you guys are getting worn down. Self-restraint was the key word. And this word, self-restraint, and I don't know the word in Arabic to tell you, you may know this verse and know what the word is for self-restraint. Controlling yourself is mentioned numerous times in Surah Nisa and elsewhere as being what the rightly guided people do. Practice self-restraint. Next slide. So, I just wondered, guys, if you ever noticed that there's no surah man, you know, I mean, there is actually a humankind, nas, but that means all people. But there's no men. There's only a surah Nisa, and I'm entertained by this fact. It's just an observation. I'm just putting it out there. There's also a surah ayat that says, living with them, women, on a footing of kindness and equity, or live with them on a footing of kindness and equity. If you take a dislike to them, it may be that you dislike something through which Allah brings a lot of good. And this was in response to some men that said, women, I've had enough of them. I'm never going to relate to another woman in my life. But yes, as much as it is a challenge and a struggle, there's something good about women and there's something good about men, and there's definitely something good about marital relations. So all Muslims are encouraged to, if they can, and if they desire to, marry and do that little jihad or struggle of marriage. So I'm going to close because I want to keep our time short. That way you'll have time for questions. What are the keys to unity in marriage? Kindness, certainly. Equity, in many ways. Providing comfort for each other and remembering to express comforting words. Self-restraint, that key word that is in Surah Nisa over and over and over again. Go back and read it. It's an amazing surah. Pleasing each other, which is also part of being married. And love. And of course, love being the greatest act of worship, whatever faith you're in. So I send you to go back to your respective planets, Safa, over here, and Marwa, And let's remember Allah when we practice our interplanetary communication skills. I know that second languages are not some of your strengths, but really work towards it. And as someone who has seen both sides of marriage, both in and out, and both very pleasant marriage and unpleasant marriage, I've seen that if a marriage is mutually respectful, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And Jazakumullah khair. I'll ask that we recite together Surah Al-Asr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal Asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Ya Allah, please help us to be of those who teach of truth and patience. Ameen. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
We'll save questions for the end. And also, you'll notice you have note cards in your folders. And if you don't feel comfortable coming up to the microphone, you can actually just pass them forward, and we'll announce your question and answer it, inshallah. Our next speaker is, are you ready? Wait, well, they're almost ready. Okay, I'll go ahead and introduce them. Our next speaker is Akeo Abdul-Samad from Des Moines. And he'll be continuing this panel and speaking on Islam and gender relations.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is a messenger of Allah. I give the greetings to my Jewish brothers and sisters that are here of Shalom. To my Christian brothers and sisters that are here, I give you the greetings of peace be upon you. To my Muslim brothers and sisters, I say Assalamu alaikum. I'm not sure, I've had an enjoyable time even getting here. I had to leave late last night. I had some obligations, and I was driving here with my beloved brother, Dali Muhammad, and we were talking all the way here. But one of the things after getting here and then staying up late at night to put on final touches for the talk today, I was excited because I'm excited when you're in a company of people who want to learn and you get a chance to share and you hear great speakers, you know, well, my speaker left, but you hear great speakers and it's just enjoyable. But one of the things that I don't understand, and you're going to have to help me, is that, especially with my Muslim brothers and sisters, when I say Assalamu alaikum, my limited understanding tells me that you give a greater greeting and it's an exciting greeting. And, you know, usually when I hear Assalamu alaikum in a group, I say Assalamu alaikum, and I hear Wa alaikum assalam. And then I wonder if someone's here, you know. So I'm going to do that again, and you're going to help me. All right? We understand that? Just somebody say yes. Yes. Okay. All right. Assalamu alaikum. Now that's the energy that we have to have in Islam. That's the energy. And I'm happy, you know, I was actually distressed when I was asked to do this topic because I said gender relations in Islam. And until my sister spoke today, I guess the point of doing, since I have some experiences in that, you know, in trying to work, it gives me some type of authority. So I appreciate you legitimizing me being here today. But I think to the point that what really gave me my talk today was when I came down from my room to eat breakfast. When I came down to my room to eat breakfast this morning, there was a waffle maker, and I had never used it before. But because of one thing, you know, you're being an adult, you think you know a lot, and sometimes your little arrogance slip in. I didn't think I needed to read the directions. So I took my little cup, I had to find the cup first that had the batter in it, and I just poured it in the waffle thing, and I put it down, and oh, praise be to Allah. There were some other brothers and sisters there, but I put it down, and I was standing there looking at the waffle thing, and it started beeping. And when it started beeping, I'm saying, why is this thing beeping? The waffle can't be done, So then somebody else says, I think it's done or something. So I raised it up and the thing was just falling all apart. Stuff was just dripping down. So then I put it back down and another brother came and said, you have to turn it. And as he turned it, I looked over to his right and there was the instructions. And if I had read the instruction, I would have had a good waffle. But since I didn't follow instruction, I had a messed up waffle. And then I was too embarrassed not to take this messed up waffle. So I flipped the thing, it was flipped over, and I opened it up, and I peeled this nasty looking thing off, and I put it on a plate. And when I put it on the plate, I slapped as much butter on it as I could, dripped it in syrup, got me 2 orange juices, and went to the room laughing. And I got to the room, actually it was a pretty good waffle. It was messed up, but it was pretty good. I say that because when you talk about gender relations, a lot of times we are messed up because we don't follow instructions. We lose our way. We don't understand that we have been given the best instructions in the world through the Holy Qur'an. But we don't follow that instruction. And when you don't follow the instruction, you run into trouble. Just like when we turn around, and I'm only taking part of this ayat. And the part I don't want to get into the Ramadan part, the fasting, but I want to start off where our instruction says very clearly that they are your garments and ye are their garments. Now, sister talked about marriage. Now, what we have to do in this short time is talk about how do we get from A to B? How do we get to marriage? Now, when you have a garment, this means that a garment is something that covers you, that protects you. Is that right? I'm not going to be here by myself today. Is that right? Okay, work with me. Because we're Muslims and you want for your brother and sister what you want for yourself. Now, that's what I understand. Now, the thing is, a garment protects you. But how do you get the garment? The garment is the end result, the outcome. Marriage is the outcome and you begin work from there. But to get to marriage, you have to do some preparation. You have to prepare the garment. You have to have someone to actually design the garment, to actually prepare the garment, to have it looking nice so that it's a good protection. You would not, and coming here to Cedar Falls, you would not wear a summer garment. Is that right? If you did, then you really need to be in this lecture because we have a problem. The key with that is that our problem does not come after marriage. Our problem comes before, in our preparation. Where does it come in at? We live in a society here in Mecca. We're not in Saudi Arabia. We're not in an Islamic country that you wake up and you have a mosque on every corner. That you wake up and you don't see magazines, you don't turn on television and see the decadence on television and everything else. We're in a society that perpetuates immorality. We're in a society that perpetuates infidelity. We're in a society that doesn't build families. We're in a society that goes the opposite to that. And I'm not saying everyone does. I'm not saying America is bad. I'm not into that. I'm into where we're at in building. Now, when we turn around and talk about gender, we have to talk about our responsibility. What is our responsibility? Just number one, I don't know how many mosques, and I've been to a lot in the country. I don't know how many communities. How many of us either have a swimming pool or rent pools where our sisters can go swimming? Or the brothers have recreation to go to recreation. Brothers have more places to go than sisters do. Is that right? Sisters don't have a whole lot to do. But we're talking about building relationship. We're talking about the gender of relationships. Everything that we do basically in this community and society is geared toward men. It's not geared toward women. So how do we look at the most beautiful religion and our instruction that we are to be on equal level, that we are to help each other, that we are to share, that we are, as my sister pointed out, to listen and to help each other when we're living in a society? You know what? We don't even talk to each other right. We don't even communicate. And especially with our children. We're so scared to talk about sex. We're so scared to talk about sex that where do our children learn it? In schools, we don't know. In schools, we don't have influences in. With their peers who go around talking about it, because we tell our children, our girl children, our male children, you must be chaste. You must obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You must be able to go forward, but we're not going to talk about sex. We'll talk about it later. But then, when they walk in the grocery store and they walk up past the magazine, what do they see? What do they see as far as in the stores and on television and different things? And I hope no one gets offended. But I brought 3 magazines that are typical of all the magazines. This magazine is called A Complete Woman. This is America's image of a complete woman. I don't know what's complete, but that's what they say. Because I'd rather deal and understand and teach our children why the hijab, why the covering, why you save yourself for your marriage, rather than have somebody tell me or they read out of a magazine, sex exposed, XXX, rated guide to what men want. I didn't read the article. Women who get the greatest guys reveal their secrets. These are the articles, these are what, and then look at who's presenting the article. She's not in no hijab. She's not dressed properly. But this is what our children say. How many of us in our families have sat down with our children and said why this is not right, but did it in a language that they can understand and not dictatorial and not to the point of suppressing or oppressing our children or ourselves? How many of us actually hold sessions in our centers and actually teach about sexism, teach about how it is to communicate with one another? I am 51. At 40 years old, I began to learn how to communicate with women on a level of equality and understanding rather than saying, do as I say, not as I do. Because I realize that we are living in a society that one of the things that are very important to us is that for us to build relationship with one another, we have to learn to talk and communicate, and the most important, to listen. For the women, this is strictly for the women. My sisters, how many times have you went to your husband, to your brother, to your father, and all you wanted them to do was to listen? Raise your hand. How many times you went there and they did not listen? You know why? Because even we are in a society that we not only don't listen to each other as men or women, but we don't listen to our children anymore. So in building, and we talk about the gender relation, in building that, we run into problem. And when I say listen, it's so important. Because let me tell you what happened, and sister's right, fixing things as men is very important. But men, you must know your limitations in fixing things. We can't fix everything, and women cannot fix everything. We have to share. We can't fix. If our women come to us with some problem, sometimes we just have to listen and quit trying to fix it. Sometimes we have You all remember Superman, the guy that flies over and jumps over? But anyway, whenever there was a problem, what did Superman do? He sat there as Clark Kent and he listened. And then after he listened, he ran into a phone booth, if there was one there, a closet, a toilet, somewhere. And what did he do? He come out and big S on his chest, and he's saying, fix it. Superman, right? What do we do as men? When women come to us with a problem, we stand there and we look so calm, so loving. On the inside, what are we doing? Finish so I can fix it. I can do this. I'll tell you what to do. And then we do Superman. And we come out and tell them, well, if you do this, sister, you do this, you do this, and do this, and do this, and do this, this won't happen. And sisters are just as criminal because the cause no fiction in the home. Instead of them saying to you, all I wanted you to do is listen, they say, thank you, brother. And then they walk away, all I want them to do is listen. You see, we are not honest with each other in relationships. And if you're not honest in the beginning, you cannot be honest in the relationship itself. Most of us in religion, especially in the three major religions, we all wear a mask. We wear a mask of deceit because that's the way this country is set up. We're not honest with each other totally. We turn around. Let me tell you something. Obedience does not mean stupidity. Obedience. And it says in the Qur'an that you are to be obedient unless they go against the Qur'an. Unless they go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For us as men and women in this country not to show, especially as Muslim, and I speak to us as Muslim, for us not to show our respect to the women and to each other is criminal to anyone else. And anytime we don't show respect, that means that anyone else outside of our realm can come in and disrespect us. Our sisters that go to school, our brothers that go to school, most schools you don't even go to school to talk about Juma prayer. You don't get them out from Juma. How do our children learn to relate to one another if we don't stand up to get them out for what they believe? We have to stand up. That's another issue. I get excited. Because we have to love Islam with all of our heart. We have to love Allah, and we have to follow instructions. And I say that because I'm telling you, in teaching, again, this is Glamour magazine. These magazines, in a survey, I run an organization called Creative Visions. In a survey, we interviewed and surveyed actually 500 young people. The magazines I'm showing you are the magazines that came out of that survey where they talked about where they learned certain stuff from. And I picked these magazines up. I'm talking about African American, I'm talking about, Caucasian children, I'm talking about Latino children, I'm talking about a diverse amount of children. Took the survey, and these are the magazines that they come up. 500 young people, these are the major magazines. The young women we're talking about, Glamour. Glamour. One of the first things in here, one of the most educating articles, 11 sex moves men wish we'll try. Our children. That's our children. Where are our magazines that we need to teach our babies? There's things we have to do, and very important. Now, how do we do them? You can go to the next one. One of the things that I looked at instructions that will make sure that you get a good waffle is very simple. It says in our book, the Qur'an, where Allah gives us this there, as it says in the beginning of majority of the surahs, that in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, this is Allah being merciful, that for Muslim men and women, for believing men and women, for devout men and women, for true men and women, for men and women who are patient and constant, for men and women who humble themselves, for men and women who give in charity, for men and women who fast and deny themselves, for men and women who guard their chastity, and for men and women who engage much in Allah's praise. For them has Allah prepared forgiveness and a great reward. And Allah surely speaks the truth. And I ask you also to forgive the typos. One of the things that we understand, what is the reward of doing the pre-garment? The reward is us building relationships. The reward is us understanding each other. The reward is us having the outcome of a beautiful wife, a beautiful marriage, a beautiful individual. That's the reward that we have. What's the reward? The reward is that I can actually come to someone and they know that I'm your brother. And I'm going to run to you and not from you, that I know that my sister is comfortable with me because she know I'm not going to be looking at her Google eye. I'm not going to be trying to look, as they say, into her soul. My brother then in building relationship with men, that means my brother, I can look at my brother and we are brothers and we don't have to be suspicious of each other. We don't have to look around and poll each other and not be able to communicate. I would be able to go to my brother Muhammad Shams because I have a problem and I'm not scared to tell him my problem. I'm not scared he's going to look down on me. I'm not scared he's going to make me feel like a dummy. That means I don't go around claiming and putting chips on my shoulders and making excuses. Well, I don't go to that mosque because I'm African American and they are racist and they don't believe in me. I don't worry about that because I have relationships with my brothers. I have relationships that if I have an issue, I can talk to them. I don't have to worry about going or seeing a sister or scared to go up and pick something up for her or going and saying, Assalamu alaikum. I don't have a problem because I know she's not going to look at me and say, well, I wonder if he's going to try to talk to me. I wonder what he's going to do to me. I don't have to worry about that because I know they're my sister and I know I must respect them and I know they're someone's daughter. I know there's someone, this is a mother. I know this is someone in the community. I don't have to worry about that. Because why? Because we're talking to each other. I have no problem going to my sister and saying to my sister, I need to learn. Or in the mosque, we're holding sessions with women and we're listening to their concerns. How many times can we have prayer rooms, masalas for sisters that are twice as small as the brothers? No place for them even to be. How many times? Brothers and sisters, this is not long. I just want to make a point because we're dying in our own community because we don't communicate. We don't listen. And we're not building relationships. We're building survival ships. That's what we're doing. This is a beautiful conference that's held for the third year. The first one, I think, was in our city. The second one was in Ames. The third one is being here. But one of the things that we have to be able to do is why we're here is communicate with one another. We have to see each other. We have to come out of our comfort zone with each other. And we have to begin to address each other. Beloved, anything that a lot of my talk, I've stopped because my sister said it for us in marriage. But I just want to just put emphasis on how we don't listen. And you're going to have to help me. You're going to have to help me. And then I'm going to close out because we're going to do this so we can have questions and answers because we need to take some time to really ask those questions. And some of the questions we need to ask, we need to have sisters' answers. And some of the questions we ask, we need to let the brothers answer because we need to really deal and communicate with one another. Because I can go on with some questions that I know sisters have asked me in private and brothers have come to me that have just come into Al-Islam and, different questions like, what do I do? How do I, when I see a sister I'm interested in, how do I get to know her? If I see a sister that I may want to approach, how do I do that? Sisters, how do I approach that? Who in the mosque do I go to? Do I go to anyone? Do I have my father? Do I get my brother? How do I do that? And a lot of individuals that just come into Al-Islam, they don't know. They come in, they really don't know. And you get a lot of brothers that come in and they want wives, but they don't know how. Because when the sisters, usually they see the sisters, they're going in one door and the brothers are coming in another. Or they're in one room, they're in another room. And then or something, there's an event, you see sisters walking by and the brother's standing there, he don't know what to do. And he's going around, he's asking other brothers, he said, what do I do? I want to meet your sister and everything. And seriously, when I first came into Al-Islam, brother, I'm telling you, that happened to me. And I was in mosque, I was in New Orleans. And I went to the mosque. And I was standing there, and I in the street. When I wanted to meet a woman, I just walk up and say, my name's Akeo, what's your name? How you doing? And if she said, well, my name is so-and-so and so-and-so, I said, you want to go to dinner? And she said, yeah, I want to go to dinner. We go to dinner, have a candlelight dinner. I didn't understand that, if male and female are alone, the third person is shaitan. I didn't understand all of that. I was from the street. If male and female were alone, hey, whatever happened, happened. I mean, you got to understand, we're living in a country that does that. So when I get into the mosque, my first time, I don't know. So when I come into the mosque, yes, I'm not a monk. I ain't no priesthood in Islam. I want a wife. I got needs. I know she got needs, somebody. So what I do? I go in the mosque, I'm standing there, I say, give me a wife. I'm looking around. I'm seeing sisters. What I do? I go to a brother, I said, brother, what I do? I said, there's a lot of sisters here. I don't want to talk to nobody who's married. I want the one who's not married. Let's have a party. The brother looked at me and said, brother, you have to learn Islam. Okay, what about the party? No, brother, there's things we have to teach you. Okay, what about the party? I said, hey, can I be taught as I go? Can this be hands-on experience? Hey. But the point is, no one took me under their wing. No one communicated with me. No one took me under the wing to walk with me so I would understand. So what happened to me? I ended up leaving the mosque. I said, I'm going to find a mosque where they ain't scared. I'm going to find me somewhere where they don't mind me meeting the sisters. That's what I said. And I was going all up and down the Mississippi River. I worked on a riverboat. Every time the boat stopped, I got dressed, put on some cologne. And one day I put on too much. You can smell me before I got there. But the whole key is I was going to find me a wife. And I would run to the mosque and I'd go to the mosque and somebody would look at me and say, brother. So I got tired of hearing, brother. I want to hear somebody say, let's get it on. But the point is, all I'm trying to do, and we laugh to keep from crying, but I'm saying a lot of relationship isn't just male and female. A lot of relationships have to be sisters who take on new sisters coming into the mosque to teach them that so they understand, so they themselves aren't lonely and they don't understand. Same thing with brothers. Brothers have to take young brothers and old brothers into the mosque when they come in and not leave them by themselves. Once they say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Abduhu Rasulullah, you can't leave them alone. You can't leave them watering. Most of us that come in, we don't know nothing about Arabic. We don't know how to speak Arabic. Some of us come in, instead of saying Muhammad, we're saying muck. Some of us come because we don't know. So if I can't build a relationship with my brother, how do I build a relationship with a woman that could be my wife? Because I have no one over here to teach me. So I'm going to go to her, and what happens is I'm bringing my baggage to her. And what is my baggage from the real world? My baggage is insecurity. My baggage is lack of knowledge. My baggage is bringing that Jahiliyyah mindset into that relationship. So when I get there, I don't want her to out-Quran me. I don't want her to outspeak me. I don't want her to do things. So I'm standing there with her saying, I'll read the Quran to you. Don't go to the mosque. I don't want you to learn. Why? Because I don't know. No one took time to build a relationship with me. No one took time to take me under their wing. And if I'm a new convert from America, I didn't have a father that took me and said, son, follow the directions. So I look for that in my brothers, and if my brothers don't give that to me, then when I go to put my garment on to protect my wife, it's the wrong garment. I got a pants too short. My pants is sagging. I'm showing my underwear. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing because I didn't have anybody to teach me. No one took me. So I can't build a relationship with you until I build a relationship with you. Because I need to know what it is to be a man in Islam. And if you don't know, then we need to go together and build. Don't give me Islam. I want Islam. And that way we can build. My brothers and sisters, I can go on. Because I told you I get excited. Because this religion, Al-Islam, is what will save this world today. And I'm not saying that because of the fact that Islam is a strange religion. What it is the fact that when we talk about Islam, we talk about a way of life. And if we talk about a way of life, gender relations is not a problem because it becomes a way of life. If we talk about understanding, then it's not a problem. And I'm not saying to my Christian and Jewish brothers and sisters and those believers of the book, I'm not saying that it overtakes, because all Islam means is submission to one God. And if I submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then I'm not taking away from you. And that's what I'm saying in building gender relations. Let's start at home in our mosque. Let's begin to develop programs for the women and the children and the men in our mosque and in our centers so we can begin to understand what it is to live and not to the point what it is to have fear. If everything that is going on in the world today prevents us from going swimming, going skiing, going playing basketball, going enjoying ourselves, then we don't have enough faith in Allah. Let's go enjoy ourselves. And if you want to build relations, and you want to do it with other religions, challenge them to a basketball game. Tell them. The Des Moines Islamic Center challenges the Christian Presbyterian Baptist to a game. And get our sisters sitting there looking just as pretty in the stands. Get the brothers there, so when I miss the basket and Brother Deli make it, we say, Allahu Akbar. My brothers and sisters, I came to you in peace. And as I come to you, I would wish to leave you. And we want to leave time for questions. But I say to you, think. Think about what your commitment is to building. Institution building is not easy. Just think. May Allah bless you. May Allah grant us all forgiveness. May Allah give us the strength to push the envelope and to practice the deen without any fear. I came to you in peace. I leave you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes for questions and answers. There is a mic up there, or you can bring your questions up to the front.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Jazakum Allah khair, Brother Echo and Sister Lisa, for the presentations. The topic actually, you try to make as fun of a presentation as possible so the audience can actually understand more of the importance and the seriousness of this topic. But I think, both of you, alhamdulillah, have done a great job to try to entertain us, where there is a hadith to the Prophet ﷺ says, one of the signs of the Day of Judgment would be the increase of the divorce because of the ignorance of many people that they do not actually understand these type of issues. I noticed from Sister Lisa, she tried actually to challenge men, of saying men are driven by sports, sex, food, and others, which actually we know which men are we talking about. Those are not the men that are following the Prophet ﷺ, neither Abu Bakr, neither Umar, nor of any of the companions in the generation of the Prophet ﷺ, nor the after them. We have addressed also some of the issues meant to pick up, the garbage. And I think it was maybe to reach one of the points about the arrogance or the misunderstanding or the disconnect among the husband and wife. But we are not talking also about the obedience of all the women are actually just, debating these to death because men are not understanding and religiously speaking. Neither women are like Khadija, radiallahu anha wardaha, nor Aisha, nor others. You addressed also one of the biggest issues, that you can sleep comfortably a little bit, although it's not comfort to go in any Islamic countries where you are having a society around you that they may guide you a little bit. But you are here in a place that you have mosques are not having salat 5 times a day. There is no imams, there is no teachings, there is fights, titles, and many other things that we really need to wake up. As wars around us, there are wars internally among Muslims that I am afraid we are going to be reaching very soon. And we are, although the Muslim societies are the slowest in the divorce percentage worldwide right now, but it is going up. I would like your comment, especially about how societies here that needs to wake up for addressing such a serious issue. Jazakumullah khair.
I hope I'll answer, and then if brother also wants to make a comment, that's fine. I hope that nobody understands that I'm, an advocate of divorce, just flippantly to divorce. This is, of course, has to be a last resort, but it is also a safety valve. And when a society has strayed far from Islam, unfortunately, this safety valve is even more necessary. There's too much abuse, too much haram going on, and this is for protection of both men and women, because men oftentimes are treated cruelly as well. But certainly Islam gives us guidance. It says if you have a dispute and you can't resolve it yourself through discussion, you should bring an arbitrator, one from her side and one from his, and arbitrate. How many times in our community have we availed ourselves, and especially the new Muslims, have we availed ourselves of this opportunity for arbitration? We think in America that arbitration is some, new age concept that was developed in California courts. It was developed by Islam. It was in the Qur'an 1400 and some years ago. Islam is the way. It gives us the guidance, and certainly most of the time disputes can be resolved through arbitration, discussion, respectful discussion, and from communication and support from the ummah and community. And that was what Brother Aka was discussing, that our communities need to be supportive of those sisters and brothers who are in trouble, certainly. Jazakumullah khair.
To answer you, brothers, to be truthful, I think that if we go to chapter 33 in the first verse, it says, in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the merciful, it says, O Prophet, keep thy duty to Allah. and obey not the disbelievers and the hypocrites. Surely Allah is ever knowing and wise. We are obligated to obey the Qur'an. That is our instructions. That is what we should be doing as a community. If a community does not have an imam, if a community does not have 5 prayers a day, then that community then needs to come together and start working on that, because that's how you build relations in the community itself. Each community needs to do that. The other side of that coin is that we need to begin to reach out, and I understand that a lot of mosques in Iowa are doing that now. You know, there are meetings with different mosques throughout Iowa, an organization that has been set up that is beginning to reach out and do that. We need to support that. We need to support that 100%, because every mosque just doesn't know. We take it for granted. And that's what we have to be able to do. And I also want to comment, brother, you know, brother, and I love you, without you know I do, but I am not an entertainer. That's just the way I deliver. And I do not entertain, you know, because when I do, and to be very honest with you, and I say that to all the brothers and sisters here, a lot of times I smile and I laugh to keep from crying, because I know babies are dying in Islam. I know our children going to colleges are in trouble. You know, I know that in just a few weeks that a lot of Islamic centers and mosques are going to be under attack. You know, the FBI and others are going to be coming in, names are going to be given, and I know, and I do that, brother, from my heart, and I just want to say that, okay, because I have a fear that as a community we are going to be challenged, and we're not going to be ready for the challenge.
And brother, I think your question is next, but I wanted to also say, brother, you brought up the point that I made a sort of offhanded comment, and tongue-in-cheek comment about men being driven by some carnal desires. And I didn't pull this out of the air. I pulled it out of hadith that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that half of a man's wisdom is lost. Where? Brothers, you know the hadith. Between the thighs of a woman. And this is because this is a nature of people to lose their mind when they have desires, to not think clearly, to not make good decisions. And it was a warning for humankind. And so it wasn't something that the Jahiliyyah brought. It wasn't necessarily something that is more a Christian concept or a Jewish concept. It's something that happens if men don't try to use what? Remember the key word? Self-restraint. And keep in mind that even if they have desires, that they need to still be treating the women kindly, still be encouraging communication, and still being respectful of the women's rights.
There's a couple questions I think we really want to get to, and I think this one will be easier that Sister Lisa and I can answer. It says, regarding gender relations, what is the view of Islam and Christianity regarding same-sex relations or marriage? I think that's I think it's a good question, especially when we are in a society that is telling us to be tolerant, you know, and to accept, you know, and there's politically correct certain situation. In Islam, homosexuality is forbidden. Simple as that. You know, it is forbidden in Islam. You know, as far as Christianity, from what I've read, you know, and I'm not here to debate with any scholar or any Christian here, but if I go from the example of Almighty God, Allah, and I look at Sodom and Gomorrah, then to me, then it was not accepted in Christianity either, you know, because if we look at it and we follow the story, Lot's wife would not have been a pillar of salt today. So we have to understand that in Islam and Christianity, as it's taught, no, it is not, but also we must not ignore that this is a problem. And this is an issue, and we need to be able to address it, you know, in our communities. You know, so that's twofold, you know, because it's an issue that's not going to go away, and it continues to be dealt with because we don't deal with it. We ignore it and act like it's not happening. Did you want to? The other, and I'm not, jokes, I have a problem with jokes, but anyway, the individual basically told a joke, and to make his point, the question, and it says, this is a problem, women are hard to understand. To me, women are not hard to understand if we follow our instructions. You know, women are human just like men are human. We have differences, of course, when we talk about the woman matures faster than the male. What's that hard to understand about that? That women bear children, there's certain things that the child is to be with the woman till a certain age and then to the man. What's hard to understand? The problem that we have with women, to be very honest, we don't communicate. We don't find out what the feelings really are. And we haven't did it from generation to generation to generation to generation. So now we're at a point where it looks so confusing. It's not confusing. What it is the fact that we have to learn to communicate with each other and honestly communicate. And believe me, you will find out that your wife or your potential husband and, you know, is not as confused as this society tells us it is. A lot of things we get hung up because that's what we're conditioned to believe. It isn't to the point that it's true. Follow the instruction and trust me, you'll have the most beautiful waffle in your house that you ever had in your life. You know.
Dr. Jamil, if you have a really short question, you can go ahead.
I have a really short question, and I hope that the beginning of the answer, which will always be a long answer, is short as well. Sister, you talked about gender relations, which I understand is the topic of this, but I haven't heard much about family. It makes an assumption that, like American nominative society, that the nuclear family, husband, wife, children, is the model. But as we all know, throughout most of the Muslim world, we're looking at extended families. We are also looking at perhaps 90% of all marriages are arranged marriages between families. We also know that the extra-local model applies throughout most of the Muslim world. The wife goes to the family of the husband, right? Now, I wonder if you can contextualize that, and I apologize that we have such short time, in terms of, the brother talked about community, but community is based on networking. Community is based on smaller units, social units. So what can we say about the role of the extended family versus the role of the nuclear family in building Muslim communities in America? And also, the brother talked about the question of meeting. Well, traditionally, that's always something been done through the family. So I wonder, sister, if you have some comments on these issues.
Jazakumullah for the question. And my perspective is different, of course, being a Muslim raised here. The brother was saying, and I heard in an earlier session, if you embraced Islam as a new Muslim after you were a teenager or something, you've chosen to leave your family. You've left your mother, you've left your father in some way, spiritually. Those family members may not be crucial or may not choose to become active in the choosing of a wife or something for you or husband for you. Usually, in this culture anyway, families don't play a large role. I mean, in the Caucasian family, and that's different in Hispanic and many other ethnicities in the society. But in Islam, we have the example of Surah Nisa and Surah Nur, who speak of the extended family and their role. And I think it's not a mistake in the Quran. Of course, it's not a mistake in the Quran. The Quran is the perfect book. That it's speaking of your uncles, your aunts, your cousins. It's speaking of all of the relations. And I would love to see in our communities here, Islam develop the extended family as a support network for the community and for the family unit, because I think what we tend to, following the American ideal of having the mother and father and 2 kids in the house and no grandmothers to look up to, no grandfathers to look up to, no uncles and aunties, we lose out. And I think those families are the strongest, that have the strong extended family unit. And as far as finding husbands and wives, boy, if you can solve this one for me. I have 3 daughters and a son. They're all teenagers. My husband has 3 daughters and a son. Man, we're in the market. We're looking.
Just a brief thank you to you both, but also, sister, the things that you brought up and mentioned, one can look over 1,000 years of literature, of writing, by Muslim scholars, not necessarily religious scholars, by poets, etc., to talk about sexual relationships between male and female. That has been part of our tradition, our history. It is only in recent times that we have started to cover up important things that need to be brought out on the table to be discussed. And this speaks to the brother to seek knowledge from cradle to the grave. There is a corpus of material translated into English regarding gender, sexuality, family, from many cultures throughout Muslim history. So there's a lot we can draw from our own knowledge over the last 1,400 years. Thank you.